Welcome back. You're with us on Bazaar, and it is time to get down to the micros and look at a lot of those important earnings that came in post-market hours yesterday. So our team is standing by with the analysis as always. Let's kick it off. Hi guys, good morning. First of all, let's kick it off with a biggie. L&T, Rima, mixed show.
Yes, so Q4 was slightly lower than what the street was anticipating, particularly on the margin front. So revenue growth came in at 10.4%. EBITDA margins declined by 60 basis points versus expectation of flattish margins, and that led to that slight miss on the profitability. The miss on the Q4 margins also resulted in the company missing its FY23 EBITDA margin guidance. So that's the negative. But on the flip side, the order inflows, the order book, and the FY24 guidance is healthy. So the company has seen order inflows of nearly 76,000 crore rupees in Q4. The order book stands at near 4 lakh crore mark. Their FY24 guidance bakes in a sales or a revenue growth of 12 to 15%, an order inflow guidance of 10 to 12%, and plus an EBITDA margin of 40 to 50 basis points. And plus, the company in the call indicated that they have a solid deal pipeline. So miss on margins offset by strong order inflows. There is a leadership change as well. So A.M. Naik is going to be stepping down as a non-executive chairman of the company. He will be conferred the title of Chairman Emeritus. S.N. Subramaniam, who's currently the CEO and MD, will now be the Chairman and Managing Director with effect from 1st of October 2023. So a bit of a leadership overhaul as well. Back to you.
All right, Rima, thanks very much for that. In fact, we will be having Mr. R. Shankar Raman, who is the whole-time Director and Chief Financial Officer of L&T, joining us at 11:30 this morning to discuss the quarter that went by. So stay tuned for that conversation. Well, Hindalco is the other one which should be in focus on the back of Novelis numbers. Well,
that's right, Prashant. The street was bracing for a bit of a recovery from Novelis after last quarter, and there is a recovery. So read the numbers quite positively actually out there. Hindalco will be in focus on the back of Novelis' numbers. Top line, there was a bit of a degrowth, but that's because shipments itself were lower. The management mentioned that in the can segment, there was some destocking that's taking place, and that could continue as well in the near term. That's for the first quarter. But the quarterly EBITDA trend should come up for you on the screen. And that looked good. From around that $340 million, it's bounced back to around $400 million. So that's a positive. And also the EBITDA per ton. Remember in the previous quarter, it had gone to around $376 per ton. And the street didn't like it one bit. But now it's recovered to around $430 per ton, which is a positive. And the management says that in the next 2 quarters, it'll remain in this vicinity of around $400 to around $450 per ton. But in the second half of the fiscal, it moves to that $500 plus per ton, which is good news as well. The net debt as well did come down. But the key reason out there is they had said that it's going to be on the back of release of working capital. And that's precisely what's happened. So that's positive. The next year's guidance in terms of, capex, that's around $1.5 billion odd. Remember, in the past year, they had scaled it down from more than $1 billion. It came to around 900 million odd, and they ended even lower than that. So we'll keep an eye out on that. But what they have said is that they'll be funding this via internal accrual. So expecting a green tick on Hindalco.
Okay, so we're going to watch out for Hindalco. Speaking of earnings, Dr. Reddy's came through, and Ekta is joining in. Ekta, this morning, I think a lot of people wondering beyond the optical numbers, whether the internals are really as healthy for Dr. Reddy's. What's your read-through?
Well, that is the key point with regards to Dr. Reddy's. So the numbers were in line, revenue up 16%, margins 25%, profit 959 odd crores. But the numbers were supported by factors such as the revenue from the PLI scheme, divestment of brands to Eris, Revlimid generic contribution in the US, though all of these have been taking place in the past couple of quarters. So what the street didn't like was that the US sales were lower than estimates at around $310 million. Street was anticipating $340 million. India reported a growth of 32%, which was aided by the Eris brand divestment. Adjusted growth was around 5% year on year, and adjusted margins for divestment, as per some brokerages say, such as Antique, was 21% versus estimates of around 23%. So that's really going to weigh on the stock. That what is the future like for Dr. Reddy's after Revlimid generic? There's no divestment of brands going forward, and hence there might be an earnings cliff come FY27. So that's what the street will be looking for, though the reported basis this time round, the numbers were in line. The ADR ended lower by around 3%.
Okay, all right. Thanks a lot for that, Ekta. In fact, we'll be joining with the CEO of the company in just a short while. For now, we'll discuss the numbers and the way ahead. Do stay tuned for that conversation. Let's hop across to Manglam. Manglam, how were Godrej Consumers' numbers?
Very good numbers coming in from Godrej Consumer this time around. You know, one would say it's in line mainly because of the expectations that the company set up in the fourth quarter update. But absolute basis, you look at the numbers, 11% volume growth is the highest in the industry so far in this quarter. And the revenue was at 3,200 crores, largely in line with expectations. The EBITDA doing a tad better than expectations. That means the margins coming in at 20%. And we see the net profit at around 452 crores as well. The street was working with a number of around 445 odd crores. The EBITDA margins improved by 400 basis points. That was led by a gross margin improvement of 340 basis points, cost cuts of around 70 basis points, and ad spends increased by about 70 basis points as well. Importantly, the India business is firing on all cylinders. We saw mid-teen sort of growth coming in for their home care and personal care business, household insecticides, as well as other businesses doing well for them. All geographies doing well. The only thing now we need to watch out for is how the business in Park Avenue scales up, the payback period out there.
Okay, got that. Manglam, thanks very much. So Godrej Consumer seems to be a good show. In fact, we will be connecting with the management of the company as well. In fact, a little later on Bazaar, so around 9:40 thereabouts. Stay tuned for that conversation. Let's now move to a couple of names from beyond the index as well that have come through. So we have Gujarat Gas and SRF. Sonal tracking both the numbers. SRF, of course, the numbers came out earlier, but I guess there was a con call, Sonal?
Oh, yes, that's right. But let me start with Gujarat Gas. It was a beat as far as the poll is concerned, so better than estimates. Revenues were up 6.5%, in line with estimates at 3928 crore rupees. EBITDA, though it declined on a sequential basis, but was better than street estimates, coming in at 560 crore rupees. It was a 200 basis points beat on margins as well. Margins came in at 14.3% versus a poll of 12.3%. Net profits were flat on a quarter-on-quarter basis, but higher than the poll at 370 crore rupees. It was a volume-led beat. Volumes came in at around 9 MMSCMD versus a poll of 8.5 MMSCMD. But despite a beat this time around, the street is split. While Morgan Stanley says that they have an overweight rating and the industrial gas volume surprise, the outlook is good and the quality of volumes is also very good. So they are bullish on the stock. JP Morgan has an underweight rating. They say that while company has been very agile as far as pricing strategy is concerned, competition from propane continues, and that's why they will watch out for the strategy of the company. And PNG industrial volumes are still down 44% from its peak. For SRF, numbers were in line with estimates, but the management commentary is quite bullish. They're expecting 20% growth in specialty chemicals business in FY24, and it is on a high base. However, packaging business margins will continue to remain under pressure, but they are expecting recovery in technical textiles margins going forward. Interestingly, they are also focusing on pharma CDMO, and they are looking at expanding into this field via organic or inorganic ways. They're also looking at refrigerant gas exports to Middle Eastern markets from Q2. That'll be the next big trigger for the company. Expect a green tick on SRF today.
All right. Thanks very much for that. So important numbers coming through. More though, Surabhi standing by with that list, more earnings and a few stocks and news as well. Surabhi, morning.
Thanks so much for that. So first on my radar is Bosch. They've reported a good set of numbers. The revenue is up 23% on a year-on-year basis. The EBITDA is up 19%, came in at 522 odd crores. They've managed to maintain margins at 13% levels, and the PAT is up 14%. Next is Ratnamani Metals and Tubes. It was the best ever quarter for them. The revenue is up 54%. The EBITDA is up 78%. And for Q4 FY23, they've reported margins of 20%. So this is the second consecutive quarter where they've reported the margins above the targeted EBITDA margin band of 14 to 16%. And the PAT has nearly doubled at 75 crores. Next is Pricol, again a good set of numbers. The revenue is up 26%, the EBITDA is up 21%, and the margins have come in at 11.7% versus 12.3% same time last year. So slight compression over there, and the net profit has come in at 30 crores. But what's important to watch for Pricol is management commentary on the Minda Corp acquisition. The con call is at 4 p.m. today, so we'll watch out for any management commentary on that front. And lastly, Adani Enterprises, the company is going to consider a fundraise via equity issuance or other securities on May 13th, which is a Saturday.
Got that, Surabhi. Yes, absolutely. I think for Pricol, more than numbers, the market's interested in knowing what is happening, who's ultimately going to be running the show at the company with Minda increasing their stake. Anyway, quick recap of our top stocks to watch out for this morning. The ones that have positive news flow around them are Hindalco, Godrej Consumer, Gujarat Gas, SRF, Bosch, Ratnamani Metals, and Pricol. Also Adani Enterprises. While stocks with negative news are L&T and Dr. Reddy's, both on earnings. Well, that's a lot of the equity market action. Let's figure out what's happening in the world of commodities. We have Manisha joining in for that. Manisha, good morning. So the inflation print was benign. And what's happening in your part of the world now?
Well, thank you for that, Surbi. The crude oil prices, for one, have continued to be on the stronger side here. The US dollar retreating has been a supportive factor. And then the markets are looking at strong US demand coming back. So the inventories in US for gasoline, distillates and jet fuel all has declined because the demand has been stronger. And then you also saw US cancelling the sale of 140 million barrels from the strategic petroleum reserve. So that extra oil also is not coming into the market. That added premium to the space as well. While, of course, Russia will continue to export more than the planned output cuts is what the numbers show, and that is what is keeping the crude oil prices in check. The overnight space wasn't so great for the metals also. The LME index fell by nearly 2% overnight. Copper is nursing losses as well, fell nearly a percentage point yesterday. The bigger decline, though, came in for nickel. That fell by 3%. Zinc was down nearly 2% in the overnight markets. So whatever gains that we saw on Monday and Tuesday, overnight really has wiped all of that off.
Okay, all right. Manisha, thank you very much for that. We'll take a quick break here. Up next, we have the management of Dr. Reddy's joining us to talk about their fourth quarter earnings. That's going to be the big stock to watch today. We'll connect also a little later with Deepan Mehta of Elixir Equities for his take on these numbers. So many. And you don't want to miss that conversation coming right up in just a bit.